The Edmonton Oilers have made a massive trade with the Boston Bruins, including trading for Trent, Frederic, and Max Jones in exchange for a couple of draft picks. We're going to be talking about this trade, as well as why this is one of the most interesting ones the Edmonton Oilers could have made right now. We're going to be talking about all that here in this video very, very quickly. Before we get into this massive trade, though, be sure to hit the sub button. We notice that 75% of you guys watching right now have not hit that sub button. If you're looking for a spot for all of your Oilers news this trade deadline season, you're in the right spot. Hit the sub button. Join us here on the channel. We're covering everything Edmonton Oilers. Without any further ado, let's get into this deal. Starting off with what is coming here from the Edmonton Oilers page. Now, bear with me. I'm going to go over this entire three-way deal, including the New Jersey Devils as well. The Boston Bruins trade Trent Frederic for 50% salary retention to the New Jersey Devils in exchange for unsigned draft choice Peter Hauser. Trade number 2. The New Jersey Devils trade Trent Frederic with 50% retained once again for a total of 75 to Edmonton in exchange for unsigned draft choice Shane LaChance. And trade 3. Boston trades Max Jones, unsigned draft choice Peter Hauser to Edmonton in exchange for Max Wanner, St. Louis' second-round pick in 2025, which was, of course, owned by us, and Edmonton's own fourth-round pick in 2026. Now, this deal is a very interesting one for the fact that Trent Frederic, as we know, is currently one of those players that are on the LTIR for the Boston Bruins. They've had no luck this year with injuries and being one of the top trade targets for this team. There's a lot of uncertainty regarding Trent Frederic's trade value and trade scenario, I guess we could say, with the Boston Bruins, but the Edmonton Oilers saw a chance in this, and I will get into a little bit why in a few moments here. But when we're looking at the whole deal as it plays out, it's an interesting one. As you know, Chris Johnson said right here, there's no point where we can tell he's going to return for sure. The LTIR, a whole scenario, he may be back at the playoffs, which is a very interesting one where we could pull a little Vegas Golden Knights move, saving that cap space. Although, there are some very interesting things as to why this is probably not the case. Because Trent Frederic is on 75% retention, he is making $500K from the Edmonton Oilers. Now, this is an absolute steal for the Oilers team, who don't have to pay him at all. And with the Edmonton Oilers roster, everything the way it's going to play out when he comes back, he has a perfect spot to fit in to this third line, fit into, even the second line if need be when we're looking at it. We'll come back to his stats in a moment here, but I wanted to pull up the lines, because when we're looking at the lines, and of course, Trent Frederic right now is injured, so there's no point in putting him into this lineup right yet without, knowing the for sure starting lineup after the NHL trade deadline. Although we may see a few more moves, I think it could look very, very similar to this. Of course, there may be a few additions. Now, Trent Frederic has been playing for the third line on the Boston Bruins. Has not been great this season, has unfortunately struggled, but we've been able to see in the past what he's been able to do, and fits perfectly into either a second line role or a third line role, and most likely, in my opinion right now, on this Oilers team, I would assume the third line. Now, when it comes to playoffs as well, though, we know experience is more important than anything, and Trent Frederic has quite a bit of that with the Boston Bruins when it does come down to the playoffs. He's been a very, very useful player for that team, and, unfortunately this season, as he does come on to a season-ending contract, or we're going to a UFA after the season, he didn't really get the opportunity to make quite a bit of money, which could be a good thing for the Boston Bruins when it does come to, or the Edmonton Oilers, when it does come down to it, because, if they do see what they like, they could try and sign an extension for a cheaper price, but ultimately, what we've been seeing on the extension side of things has been $4 million. Now, when we go back to the stats that Trent Frederic has been having this year, 15 points in 57 games is obviously not great, but when we look at last season, look at the season before, 40 points in 82 games, 31 points in 79 games, and then, kind of keeping that area, if we could see that once again, and 5 points in 13 games in the playoffs last year, we could also throw that in there. If we do see a continuation of those past two seasons, when he does come back, if that comes back to form, and I think that big part of Trent Frederic's lack of success this season has been who he's been playing with. I do think it's been, just a different scenario, a different bit of scenery for Trent Frederic will turn this season around for him, and hopefully that is the case for the 6'3" forward who has been a force to be reckoned with on the offense. And I kind of want to go back as well to the lines here. When we look at this, having him, Corey Perry, pairing those two guys, not together, but, having them on a third and fourth line respectively, would be a very, very big thing for the Oilers when it does come down to the playoff time, when you want that physicality to be up, when you want the grittiness. Those two guys bring it, and especially Trent Frederic here in this deal. But going back now to the contract. When you look at him there, you see Matt Savoy there, $886K, being, what you would expect the bottom of this team's salary. You look at Trent Frederic, $575K being paid by the Edmonton Oilers. Now, an absolutely insane contract. And of course, retention didn't necessarily need to happen, but why not? When you can make this move, when you can get him for cheap, when, especially use the bargaining chip that you don't know if he's going to be back before the playoffs, keep him on the LTIR. You don't even need to necessarily if you don't want to at this point. It makes the flexibility for the Edmonton Oilers so important, and especially of how they're going to use him, and not just Trent Frederic in this case, but also Max Jones, and looking at the outcome of the rest of the trade deadline, I guess we could say, is a better way of putting it. When we do look at Max Jones' stats here, of course, in the NHL, was not great this year. 7 games, 0 points for the Boston Bruins. Was a move that, I thought had a lot of certainty for it, but ultimately did not. But in the AHL this season, he was, about 20 mid-20 points in 30 games or so. So he has not been putting up a bad year in the AHL. And once again with Max Jones, he's another guy that can bring grittiness to your team. And when it does come down to these playoffs, when it does come down to opportunities where you see players like Max Jones be able to play, he fills the role perfect. When he gets the opportunity, it's absolutely fine. Now, Max Jones would not be able to carry a line. I think that's something we saw with the Boston Bruins this year. The team has been horrible. Nothing has been going well for that team, and I think that's where a lot of these results come from. But Max Jones, when putting him on any of those possible lines that we do see right here, I see some success coming either way, wherever it do come from. And of course, Max Jones don't even have to play in the NHL. The option's there for the AHL. The option's there to be brought up as, that 13th forward if need be, when it does come down to playoff time, when it does come down to needing that extra forward on your roster. He does bring that asset very, very well. And giving up only a second and a fourth, that's definitely a little bit more than I think a lot of people thought. I thought that, with especially the value going down in Trent Frederic due to that injury, and Max Jones is not playing great this year, being a nice little topper to that, though, it is kind of, interesting to see a second and a fourth. I thought a trade certainly would have started at, a third, maybe kept it at a third, but to be able to round out a trade and I guess make things happen, and the retention is a big part of this as well, it does come down to make some sense. Now, when we're looking at the cap space that the Oilers currently have, $4.5 million is what they're currently at. Now, that does include Trent Frederic on this, with the LTIR and everything. So $4.5 million is still quite a bit of money to make another move. And we've seen the Oilers be linked to quite a few Bruins players. And, maybe they are not finished. Maybe they see something else. Maybe something happens close to the deadline. But there is enough room to line up to make the Oilers make another move here, especially to kind of add to this depth, make things work out in the best way possible for this team, and really we'll go from there. I think that's a great first trade of the deadline, for the Edmonton Oilers, especially being able to add and having that safety net is what I think is a good way of calling it here for the Edmonton Oilers with Trent Frederic. So let me know what you think in the comments below. What do you think about this trade? It's certainly one that I think a lot of people are going to like. Player, absolutely. I think it's a great addition for the Edmonton Oilers. Now, the only thing I'm a bit wary on is how much they paid for him, which is not really a big deal when you're paying for that, and when your picks are going to be low. Why not? Why not make those moves to get the salary down a bit cheaper? So it does make sense. Just a bit of a nitpicky thing there on that trade, but that's all I got. Let me know what you think in the comments below about this trade once again. But thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.